everyone. It is season 4 of Poetry Worldwide. We had to take a long summer break to bring you some of the best artists in the world, not just in Memphis, not just in the United States, but in the world. So our first interview, we wanted to come out with a very big bang, and we are delivering that. We are interviewing our first international guest all the way from the motherland, from Ireland. We love getting international guests, so this is a treat. We are definitely geeked up, and we are ready to talk to him, get him to debut, and it's just going to be a beautiful experience. Now, before we get started, we just want to thank WYTV7 Network for believing in the goal and the dream that poetry is a worldwide event. It doesn't matter about color, it doesn't matter about gender or race or nationality. The only thing you got to do is just feel it and write it. So we definitely thank WYTV7 for giving us this type of platform for artists around the world. So without any further ado, this young gentleman, he tagged us on Instagram for about a year and a half. Just beautiful, heartfelt poetry. He has mastered the art of saying a lot in a little span of time. So we love that as well. So please welcome Mr. Adam Cooper to the show. Adam, how you doing?
Hi, how you doing? Thank you very much for such a warm welcome.
Oh yeah, hey, we're all about love, and it's especially poets. That's our favorite four-letter word is love. So yeah, we got enough here. But I was just telling the audience that, I mean, my goodness, you're 6 hours ahead of us over here in the States, and I mean, I can't even say anything. I'm just excited. We're definitely going to use this time, for people to get to know you as an artist and to really explore your craft. And we definitely want you to shine today. So one of our first questions that we ask any poet is, what made you start writing, and how long have you been writing?
Well, I've been writing since I've been about 15, 16 years old. So that was about 4 years ago since I started. And I think mainly obviously you're going through a lot of changes around that age, dealing with a lot of different things. So I needed to find an outlet to express that. And I found that writing, amongst also talking to people, of course, but I think writing was one of the best ways to just kind of discover what I was feeling and why I was feeling it, and the best way to express it to other people in a couple of words strung together in a pretty sounding way. So that's definitely why I started writing.
Definitely. Well, you've come into a very special fraternity of writers where, myself included, I started writing at about 9. And the most common thread, if you go back and listen to just about every interview that we have, all of the poets will say probably around about age 9, from 9 to about 16, that angry teenage years, or do you figuring yourself out? They use poetry as that outlet. So you're definitely in line with a lot of the greats who use poetry to really try to figure things out and to just sort out their feelings. So that's definitely good. Now, everybody has a different inspiration point. Mine was just the life around me. Where do you find yourself drawing inspiration for your poetry?
Well, I think for me, it's mostly nature, because obviously coming from Ireland, I'm mostly surrounded by it. We don't have any big built-up cities. It's a very green country in terms of just trees, grass everywhere. So what I like to do is, when I'm trying to think of something to write, I'd go out for a walk, a little nature walk, and just make a mental note of the things I see and what I like. And what I like to do is in my poems, I like to capture what I call a lightning flash second, which is just, I like to write specifically about a tiny moment that I have seen. So perhaps a leaf falling to the ground from a tree, or a lightning flash, which is where I kind of came up with the term. And I like to capture these moments and write about just how much you can pack into such a tiny moment and how much it can mean to somebody, just such a small amount of time. And I think that's definitely where I would have got most of my inspiration from.
Yeah, and now that you say that, I can kind of make that connection. Now, guys, we're gonna give you Adam's Instagram page handle, and you're definitely gonna see a lot of instances of nature. So now, yeah, I was always wondering, like, he's always writing about a tree or a meadow or something like that. Now I understand why. So definitely, you've answered that question. And when everybody, worldwide goes to your Instagram page, they're going to see a lot of those beautiful elements as well. So that's really, really good. And now you just stated that one of your inspirational points is nature. What what sort of personal aspects of your life go into your writing?
Well, mainly if anyone goes through my like all of my poems, they'll notice that I bring up the moon quite a lot in my poetry and the night sky and the stars. And I think personally that's just because when I was younger I used to be very much into stargazing, and it's something I got into with a very close friend of mine. And we just absolutely love to look at the stars. In particular, the moon. I think it's a very good point for literature, and there's so many people who have written so many different things about it, whether it's positive things about it or negative things about it. And that's always been a very personal thing for me, because I've always had quite a, I don't know, a great love with it. Almost, yeah, like a love connection with the moon. So I think for me, that's something I like to draw from. I'm actually trying to stop myself from writing poems about the night sky and the moon, because I'm doing way too many of them. So that would be a kind of a personal thing for me. Other than that, I would say loss is a very common thing that I would try to incorporate into my poems, but I try to make that as subtle as I can, because I feel like there are a lot of people who wouldn't express that head on. I feel like it's a subtlety that we see in everybody. It's kind of there under the surface, something that they're dealing with, they're moving on from. So I like to kind of layer that in my poems, but not make that the main focus of my poems. So that would be another thing that I would find a personal inspiration from.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely understand that, but I would say sometimes it is good to take things head on. So I mean that might be your niche space, or maybe you can help somebody deal with that. But definitely I see those elements in your writing. So I'm glad to really know where you draw from on that. And with all of your writing, with all of the poems, with everything that you've had written, published, or anything of that nature, what do you hope to achieve? What is your main goal when you put pen to paper?
I think most poets, their main goal putting pen to paper is to get, I suppose, at the base of it, get recognition for what they were doing, what they're experiencing. They want to share it with other people, and they want to express that in the way they know how, which is writing poetry. But also, on my level, especially being a young person, I think I would like a lot more young people to be using poetry as an outlet, whether it is reading or writing, and to engage with it more outside of, say, school, where it could be assigned. I'd like them to do it for fun, or if it helps them go through something. I think it's a very great thing to turn to, and I would love for young people to be able to use that as an outlet.
Definitely. Yeah. We had, even in school, we had poetry clubs, or, we would go to, different parts of the United States and do these poetry competitions called poetry slams, where the audience judges your poetry. And it was a lot of fun. It really helped to, I would say, take the academics out of it. And definitely, poetry does have that therapeutic essence to it, where it helps you to, I call it unload your soul. So definitely that would be good. Now, we've talked so much about your poems, your poetry. Your ears are probably burning, as we say over here in the South. Do you have a poem to share? Because I am really excited to have people hear your work and experience it. Do you have anything to share?
Yes, I do actually. I have a poem I wrote a couple of months ago called Tempest, which is actually specifically a poem I wrote about a lightning flash seconds in its entirety, in terms of it is about a lightning flash. So I would absolutely love to share that, and I'm very glad to be sharing it, not just visually, because obviously poetry is meant to be heard. So I'm very excited to be able to read it out.
Yeah, well, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Tempest. In the sweltering desert of my splitting mind, the skies are starting to swell, and the night sky reduced to a mighty fumble of grey cloud fluff. Each grain of sand is a fossilized thought, untapped of any potential, bundled with the others in anticipation of the coming squall. Suddenly, at the speed of a regretted confession, a crackling pillar of light barrels from above into the grainy ocean of thoughts below, rattling forgotten thoughts across the continents. In this lightning flash second, how I wish I could escape, climbing this elemental ladder through the clouds to the heavens above. And that would be Tempest.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Your poetry definitely has an element to where the audience member could be sitting, out in the crowd, but if they close their eyes and listen to your poem, they could definitely be transported, to the edge of the shore, or they could see the storm, or they could see the lightning flash. But definitely, so even while reading, I think a person could be transported to that space that you're seeing in your head, or you're seeing, in your part of the countryside or wherever. But definitely hearing it, it does kind of make that mind, body, soul connection to where that person could be, standing right beside you in that moment. So that was definitely a good poem, and people, you got to get into his work. So we're definitely later on in the show going to let you know how you can connect with him. So now that we've heard your poems, what advice would you give to other young poets that are hoping to get into this field?
Well, I think the main thing is because for me, definitely, the first poem I ever wrote, I remember I didn't return to it for about 2 years because I thought it was absolute garbage. Essentially, I thought it was a very poorly written, and I thought it was a very poor attempt. But when I returned to it a couple of years later, actually, I quite liked what I was trying to get across, and it took a little bit of tinkering with, and eventually I was happy enough with it to show it to other people. So I think if you want to start writing poetry, you need to, granted, yes, there is creative like creative deconstruction and criticizing your poem, of course, but I think you need to be willing to not be so harsh on yourself. And also, another important thing is just keep writing. The best way to become an expert at any trade is just hours and hours of beating on your practice. So if you do that with your poetry, try writing every day. Even if you keep a journal, even if you're writing one line a day, you're still making progress. You're still opening yourself up to more ideas, things that you can develop on a later date. So definitely just don't be afraid to jot down any ideas that may pop into your head, and just don't be shy about it.
Definitely. Well, that's that's definitely some good advice. So, guys, Professor Cooper is letting you know you got to start writing early and often, as much as you can. That's really good advice. A lot of my poetry mentors coming up, they gave me the same advice. And now phones have made it pretty much easier to where you have like a little notepad or something on your phone where you can just type it out.
Oh,
I think I've done that before. I did a poetry event where I hosted, and the guy read his poem right off of his phone. He said, "This is something I'm working on, so I'm gonna just read it." But yeah, that's definitely good advice. And then technology has just made it all the more easier to,
Absolutely, definitely easier to
yeah.
do it. I know for me personally, on my notes on my phone, I have so many random, just I don't know, so many random little tidbits that sometimes I'll come back to them ages later and I'll forget what they are, and I have no idea what I was trying to say. So it's almost fun. It's like you're coming from an outside perspective, trying to deconstruct on what you meant, and usually I'll kind of unlock the memory. So I definitely know where you're coming from there. Technology makes it so much easier to write and express yourself. So there's almost no excuse not to, in a way.
Well, there you go. No excuses, guys. We got to get writing. That's definitely very good advice. Now, here on the show, we definitely cater to a lot of people, and poets are essentially messengers. So I wanted to ask you this question in particular. If you think about your poetry, what motivational message do you believe people would find in your work?
That's a very good question. I like that. I'm gonna I think above all else, for me particularly with my poetry, as I was saying, being in tune with nature, I think it's to stop almost. I know I'm saying technology is great, but almost get away from your smartphone, unplug, and just stop. Take a moment to look around at everything around you, and just become in tune with it almost, and allow yourself to notice the wind swaying against the blades of grass below your feet. Allow yourself to notice, I don't know, your feet as they hit against the muddy ground, or just anything like that. Because there's so much rich, vivid visual imagery even in the space around you, whether you're inside or out. So it's there's history to everything as well. So I think most of all in my poems, I'm telling people to stop, look and listen and notice the world around you, because there's a lot of beauty in it. Regardless of where you are, there's beauty in everything. So I think that's definitely the main message in most of my poems.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely a great message with the world that we're in. You know, there's like a new phone coming out every 5 minutes. You just got the latest phone, but now 5 minutes, further down the line, you got the newer phone, and everything is just so fast paced. But taking that time away from technology, being with your friends and your family, getting out into nature is definitely a good connection point. So I did want to ask, did you have any events where you are, any books coming out, any articles or anything like that? Tell us about that.
Most recently, I had a poem I wrote for a competition back in 2017. It was a poem titled "How to Survive a Storm," and it was basically the competition was to write poems that emphasize the how unprepared children in developing countries are for weather events, extreme weather events, which I think is more relevant nowadays, especially with just the sheer volume of extreme weather events that are tearing through countries, even now as we speak. So we wrote those poems, and I came first in my section in the competition, and I was published. And more recently we had the poems from 10 years of the competition gone through, and the organizers picked their favorite ones and they put them in a collection that was released this year called Future Perfect. And my poem was chosen, so it got published again, and that was actually yesterday that the event was, and it was released, and I was very delighted for it. And yeah, so that was Poetry Ireland in conjunction with Trócaire, which is a charity that assists children in need all over the country. It's an Irish charity. They do very good work. So that's what I've been up to lately, I suppose.
Well, well, no, don't suppose you did it. You won first place, and definitely, Adam. We just had a poetry slam where the poet was recorded, and then people all around the country would vote on the poet that they would like best, and they could vote like once a day or something like that. So we definitely want to invite you to record where people can not just see your poetry, where they can hear you. And we had a lot of success. So the first winner that won the competition, their books sold in China, different parts of Asia, and he's experiencing a lot of local success here in the States. But he got some international fame out of that as well. So definitely, if you want to do that, we're going to be doing it in what's that, 2020, next year. So we would definitely love for you to enter that competition, and we'll be explaining more of that to you as we go along. So I did want to ask, since the show is coming up to a close, how can people get in contact with you and see your work? So are you on social media?
Yes, I'm hoping to spread out to other platforms, but right now the only social media I have is on Instagram. I post poems as often as I can. I'm on a bit of a hiatus now because I have a bit of a transition period right now where I am, so I haven't posted in a while, but I'm hoping to get back to that very soon. So the handle for my Instagram is Adam Cooper Poetry, all lowercase. Very simple, very simple but elegant. I hope like my poetry. So yeah, that's where you can reach me, and I have all my poems posted there. At least the ones I'm happy sharing so far. But I have plenty in my backlog, and eventually I hope to write a poetry book and publish a collection of my work. So I would hope to do that in the coming year. So if all goes well, that will happen. So you can watch out for that, and I'll be posting about that on my Instagram as well.
All right. Well, there's going to be a lot more that you'll be able to add to your repertoire. So this interview is going to go out over YouTube and iHeartRadio, Spotify. So it's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to share this interview and to share your story. With people in your country. I'll definitely be sharing it over here in the United States. But Adam, we were just thrilled to speak with you. You're our first international guest, so we are really excited. And if you have any poetry friends or anybody trying to just broaden their platform to the United States, definitely let us know about it. They could be in France. We don't know who anybody knows, so we honor and we just recognize you as being the first poet. But guys, we really hope that you enjoyed Mr. Cooper's just elegance, his words, and his presence. We enjoyed him here on the show. So right now, since we are a Christian Broadcasters Network, anybody watching, if you do not have a personal relationship with the Lord, we just want to lead you in a sinner's prayer. It's just a simple prayer for the audience out there. If you feel a draw of just wanting something more out of your life, you can just say this prayer. Lord Jesus, I repent of my sins. Come into my life. I make you my Lord and Savior. And from here, if you say that prayer, audience, we believe that you are born again. Please get into a Bible-based church wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in your locality, and just keep God first place and honor him in all that you do. So once again, I'm Jessica. That is the Adam Cooper. Future perfect right there. First place winner. And this is Poetry Worldwide, where we are giving poets a voice. Are you ready to be heard? Bye.